All right, we've got some really disturbing news. Steve Bannon has come out and just said it. He said that Donald Trump and his movement are going to try to defy the Constitution and give Trump a third illegal term. And we also have reporting from the New York Times that is showing kind of how they're going to make this happen. I want to talk about this. I know we normally have a lot of fun on the channel, and I do think that, you know, they are trying to make it look like that this is all inevitable. It's not inevitable, okay? They want to make it seem like they can just defy things and nothing matters. It matters, but we have to talk about it because they're serious about it. So we have to be equally serious in our response. Now, here is what the New York Times is reporting. This is really opposite day. Trump has empowered election deniers, and he's still fixated on the fact that he lost the 2020 election because he's a fucking child. President Trump has placed proponents of his false claims to new government jobs while dismantling systems to secure voting ahead of next year's midterms. It says here, Ms. Honey suggested that the new administration could declare a, quote, national emergency and justify dictating new rules to state and local government. She said this could be based on an actual investigation of the 2020 election if it showed there had been a manipulation of the vote, which I'm sure they would not mind making up. Quote, and therefore we have some additional powers that don't exist right now, she said in March, according to a recording reviewed by the New York Times. Quote, and therefore we can take these other steps without Congress and we can mandate the states do things and so on. And as I said, this is from a recording that the New York Times received that they weren't supposed to get. So thank God that we still have journalism happening in this country. She added, I don't know if that's really feasible. And the people around the president would let him test that theory. Oh, that's where she's wrong. They're going to let you test the theory. Donald Trump is the, I think, only president to ever deny an election and to say that he won it when it was clear that he didn't. And by the way, Donald Trump took this to court a million different times. Didn't win one trial. They didn't even take a lot of this stuff to trial because they said there's no evidence. There is no evidence. But in the court of public opinion, it doesn't really matter if there's evidence or not. It goes on to say, Heather Honey, a high-profile denier of Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election, has been appointed to a senior position in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Honey is a protege of Cleta Mitchell, a lawyer who tried to help Trump overturn the 2020 election results, and now she's in a senior position of the Homeland Security. And this is why it's really important that when people try to overthrow a government, that we adequately punish them for it. Merrick Garland, sorry if you don't like to hear this, but Merrick Garland is, in my opinion, kind of at fault for some of this. I also think Republicans like Mitch McConnell, who could have stopped this before any of it happened and just voted to impeach his ass, but they thought that he would never come back. Republicans are supposed to be students of history. And how do you not know that unless you adequately punish someone who tries to overthrow a democracy, quite often the person who tries to do it again, usually through legal means, and then it's kind of game over. Now, Steve Bannon is showing one way in which Donald Trump will try to maintain power for as long as he's alive. And here's what he had to say.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28, and people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is, but there's a plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. And the way we finish it through Trump. Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious, but he's an instrument of divine will. And you can tell this of how he's pulled this off.
Now, I want to come back to this video, but I do want to quickly point out that someone who knows authoritarian movements like the back of her hand, this is what she does. Ruth Ben-Ghiat said, this is creepy. In Strongmen, I state that propagandists present autocrats' actions as, quote, sanctioned by a higher power and the fruit of, quote, divine blessing. So they are following the autocrat authoritarian playbook by saying that Donald Trump is empowered by God to remain in power.
We need him for at least one more term, right? And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me in the last few minutes. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time...
By the way, love this reporter. Notice how it's always, I've said this a million times in the channel, notice how it's always the English, European reporters who are pushing back on these folks. I wish Americans could do this. I wish they could do this, but thank God someone is.
Through Zanny and define all those terms.
But even if you find a way to undermine you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it. And to those
Can the American people, if the American people, with the mechanisms we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all. Trump
That's what it sounds like.
It's not. Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no.
I think that's why it seems to me some kind of tension
First off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people.
Not true. Not true. We've shown that Donald Trump is trying to set it up so that elections might not matter. Now, I do believe this, and this is what I want to talk about, is if we voted in record numbers, they on the right said too big to rig. They didn't really do that. But if we truly can make this too big to rig, if we take the energy we had for No Kings and we turn it into an electoral movement where we are voting no matter what, make the lines as long as you want, we are voting. I don't see how they could overthrow a movement like that. And I do believe that movement is brewing. Authoritarians can't remain in power if they're not popular. Donald Trump happens to not be popular at all. The things he's doing are not helping anyone, and people are pissed off. And so they're going to try to make it seem like this is all possible and it's inevitable. It's not. It's only possible if we allow it to happen. Are you going to let it happen? I'm not going to let it happen. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that they understand that they serve us, not the other way around. Here's some commentary. Hassan Piker said it's clear they're going to try to present this as the will of the people, to add that some kind of martial law to the internal conflict or war, and they'll let them, and you'll have fake elections and permanently Turkified state. Could be, if we let it. I would love it to be wrong, but they keep saying this in public. He's selling Trump 28 merch. He's massively remodeling the White House if it's his own personal residence. I don't really see why the idea should be taken seriously just because it's unconstitutional. Yeah, we got to take this seriously. We have to. Dave Weigel, I did not appreciate this, said, I don't want to engage in the hypothetical because, again, that is giving power to his idea. It's not possible. But, he said, if Democrats can't beat an 81-year-old Trump running for a fourth time, we can put a Spirit Halloween sign in the DNC. And where I said, I'm going to quote myself. I love quoting myself from my tweets, but I said, Dave, there aren't going to be any real elections if this becomes our future. Yeah, they're not really acting like that they want, that they're really worried about what the votes say. Mehdi Hassan said, not joking, huge crisis coming away, bigger than the current ones. Yes, and then I told you what she said. And I will end with this, because if this were to happen, this is what life in America is going to be like. It's a parody, but it's not too far from the truth. If we don't create the energy to start a movement of pro-democracy individuals who want to make sure that we remain a democracy and not a dictatorship. And I have to say, No Kings should have had voter registration. I don't think that existed. Did it? It should have. For the next one, there's got to be an electoral spirit behind it. We have to be planning for the elections. We have to get people registered. Okay? All right. That's all I just want to say that. Here's this. See you soon. Bye.
I wake up in my car to start the day. I used to have an apartment, but thanks to tariffs and inflation, traditional housing is no longer affordable. The good news is I'm already prepared for my commute to work. Time to make my way to the Apple, Chevron, Comcast, Tesla complex to start my shift. Those wonderful companies merged after antitrust laws were abolished, and now everyone works for the only employer left in the country. Before I can enter, a government agent searches my car to make sure I'm not harboring any immigrants, and then searches my phone to make sure I haven't said anything mean about Daddy President. The agent waves me through but reminds me I will have to submit to a pregnancy test before I can leave for the day. All reproductive activity is state business now. When I get to my workstation, I join in the pledge to the president. They've started requiring this every morning to thank our great leader for our lives. Then I spend 14 hours adding tiny screws to smartphones for the billionaires. Thank goodness manufacturing has been reshored. Why should anyone but Americans enjoy these unskilled low-wage jobs for pennies per hour? I can't wait to have arthritic hands before I turn 30. I heard that at that point, they take you out back and finish you off like one of those racehorses with a broken leg. Huzzah! I'll soon be free of this mortal coil. After I take my pregnancy test, I'm off to motherhood training. The government started forcing... incentivizing us to build the next generation. Each class is filled with reminders of our expectations to strengthen our great nation. As I leave, I answer the screening questions. Yes, I love the president. No, I don't have any problems or complaints. And I do not like vaccines before I'm on my way back to my car for the evening. I flip through the remaining state-approved media channels. My options include the Christian Nationalist station, the Fox News Max America channel, and a station that just plays Lee Greenwood and Kid Rock songs. I finally settle on none of these options, choosing to simply cry myself to sleep as usual. God bless the USA.